Hey, everybody. Before we get into the movies this week, we wanted to say something. We wanted to say that we are appalled by the violence that has been perpetrated against Asian Americans over the course of this past year, and most recently in the mass shooting in Atlanta. We want to say that we stand with the Asian American community and with the Asian community around the world, and we condemn this violence. Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living.
My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about some stuff for some places, and I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
Yeah, you are.
That's right.
And on this week's show, we are going to be talking about some films that played or are playing. Is South by Southwest over?
It's all over.
Yeah. Some films that played at South by Southwest. We've got your South by Southwest coverage right here. So we're going to be talking about language lessons. We're going to be talking about Dear Mr. Brody, and we are going to be talking about The Sound of Violence, which I cannot say without hearing it sung by Simon and Garfunkel.
By Paul Simon, I knew it. Sound of violence.
Of violence. But before we dig into those movies, wanted to mention that over on our Patreon exclusive audio this week, we are digging into some of the Oscar nominations and just talking about what some of our picks are and some of the major categories and some of the films that we wish got nominated, but unfortunately we're not. So if you're a patron, definitely check that out. And if you're not a patron, hey, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, seriously.
Check us out over at patreon.com/spoilerpiece and sign up to get exclusive audio each week. You can also vote in polls. We're going to have another poll going up very soon. You can also pick movies for us to watch.
Sweet.
We are going to start this week's episode by talking about The Sound of Violence, which Megan and I saw.
Yeah.
Isn't it just Sound of Violence?
You know what? It might be.
It is.
Yeah.
Anyway, tomato.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I wish I had seen this for two reasons. One, it's called Sound of Violence. But two, now that I know that Evan also hears Simon and Garfunkel every time he thinks of the title, oh man, had I known.
Well, I'll have you know, I typed in my notes Sound of Silence, not violence.
Wow, it's all three of us.
Yeah.
With a title like that, how can you not?
Right?
So, this movie, Sound of Violence, not The Sound of Violence, correct myself. It's written and directed by Alex Neuer, and it stars Alexis Reeves. Her character's name is Alexis Reeves. It's Jasmine Savoy Brown who plays her, and we meet her when she's a kid, and she has had an accident of some kind where she's lost her hearing. And her father is a veteran. He's come home. He has PTSD, and she sees him murdering her mother and brother. And she sneaks up behind him and smashes him over the head with a mallet. And this allows her to hear again. It's just this weird thing that happens to her where the screen gets all colorful and this, I don't know, Megan, how would you describe it? It's kind of like the sound is like light and feeling that's like going through her.
Yeah, so it allows her to hear again, but it also kicks off her synesthesia, which is when you see sound and you see sound as like color and light. So it's kind of kicking off two things at once, her ability to hear again and also this synesthesia, which she is As we'll get into, she's forever chasing that feeling again because apparently she doesn't have synesthesia all the time, the way people who do have synesthesia, they do. So she's chasing that feeling again of euphoria and seeing the colors and light and all of that.
Mm-hmm. And so then, flash forward, she's an adult now. She's in college. She's like a musician, and she's trying to get back that feeling. She's chasing that high, so to speak.
Yep.
And she makes the connection that she can get this feeling when she physically inflicts harm on other people.
Oh,
specifically, she realizes that in the context of making music, when she uses people's bodies to make music, she gets this feeling.
Uses people's bodies?
So like for starters, her and her friend go to record a dominatrix whipping a man. And that kind of like, she realizes she gets that feeling from hearing the sound of him like getting hit. And she actually pushes the situation too far, and thankfully her friend's there to stop her. But the next thing
the dominatrix also stops it too.
Yes,
so.
True. True.
Yeah. She is a good dom in that she does listen to the sub's request to stop.
Yeah, the tap out signal.
Yes.
So yeah, she gets a taste of it there, and then her bloodlust just grows and grows and grows and grows. She kidnaps a homeless person and tortures him with some fucked up contraption that she's made.
Yeah, that was so disgusting.
And she just keeps doing this to other people until it comes around to her best friend who she is in love with. And yeah, it just gets progressively more twisted. It's like, part of it is she's feeding the bloodlust and like the raw like high, this like feeling, but all of it is like part of her creative like outlet. Like she's building towards some like composition that she's trying to make with all the music that she records from these like murders. And so that's also driving her. And oof, I gotta say, this movie was really hard for me to watch. It's like very brutal in places, and like the violence is very graphic. I don't know about you, Megan.
Oh, I didn't like this at all.
Yeah.
Not for that reason. Not because, I mean, yes, it is graphic and brutal, but that's not why I didn't like it.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to cut you off if you were going to jump in. Yeah. So I like Jasmine Savoy Brown. I liked her on The Leftovers, but unfortunately, I don't really like most of her acting here. The woman Lily Simmons who plays Marie, I liked her, but everybody else in this film, I did not like the acting. I thought it was really, unfortunately, poor. I disliked the writing. I disliked the fact that the film does not really delve into PTSD fully, like that her father experiences. It's just, oh, hey, dad has PTSD. Oh, hey, now he's stabbing the shit out of mom and my baby brother, or not my baby brother, my older brother. And it just feels like it's a plot device and nothing else. And I kept waiting for the film to actually like kind of circle back around to it, and it never does. It also doesn't really delve into the connection between violence and synesthesia, although I found this a really great premise. Like I was excited to see this, because I found it extremely intriguing. I just didn't think the delivery was great. I will say, however, that I thought the moments of synesthesia, when we see them, are really beautiful with the kind of explosive, powdery colors of clouds and dust. That's really striking. But yeah, the rest of the film, not so much. And I love, it's very clear early on to me that Alexis and Marie have a queer kind of rapport with each other, like they're roommates, they're best friends, but there's definitely some flirtation going on that I definitely sensed. And I was so glad at the end, like towards the end, I was like, oh great, they're confessing, they're professing their love for each other. Isn't that nice? Maybe now she'll stop, or maybe something will happen. And nope, she's just full steam ahead on her bloodlust, as you called it, which I love.
Yeah.
And she mutilates Marie essentially by putting speakers all in her body, which is gross. Yeah. And it just feels pointless. And then, Marie confronts her about it and about what she's doing, because she finds the guy she was dating, dead. And she's like, and Alexa's like, oh, he's not dead. He's living on in my music. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But I would have loved more of an exploration of her creativity. Like, I feel like we're supposed to get it because that's what the script calls for, but I don't really feel like it actually really got into it. So yeah, I feel like great premise, but not great delivery.
Agreed. I also thought this was a great premise. I was really looking forward to seeing it based on the premise, but sitting down and watching it, I felt a lot like her students in class when she plays her composition, and everyone was like, this is when it's like partially finished, Dave. People were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? This is some twisted sounding fucking shit. Like, you are weird and gross. And like, the movie to me felt like that. It was as abrasive as her compositions. Like, it's just totally graphic. It feels very shallow to what you're saying, Megan. Like, it doesn't explore PTSD. It doesn't explore the creative aspects of it in a way that feels satisfying or even feel like they're well woven into the plot. It's just gross, abrasive. It's got some really stiff dialogue where you're just like, the cops, especially the cops who are investigating these musical crimes, for some reason it's one set of cops that are like looking at these homicides, and you're just, it's just like, the dialogue is so fucking stiff. It's just so unbelievably stiff, and you're just like, this, it doesn't work well.
Am I really supposed to believe it's one detective, one cop, and the exact same like examiner? Like, really?
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. The other thing I wanted to say too, speaking of it being shallow and the things it doesn't delve into, it also does not utilize silence very well. It does it in a few spots, like in the beginning of the film. But when you have a year of where Sound of Metal came out and it explores, being a deaf person and losing your hearing and deafness and sound and silence so well, it's hard not to compare, a film that's dealing in some of those same topics. And it doesn't really get into disability or deafness or anything. And there's something about it that feels wrong in a movie where somebody's hearing comes back. And not that can't happen, but it feels weird and offensive and ableist, as if like, oh, yay, now you're cured. And it's like, no, that's not really how we should be looking at disability. But anyway, just one more thing that I had a problem with in this film.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of scenes where we see Alexis as a character lose her hearing and kind of freak out in the moment. And I think it works for the character, but it doesn't feel like it works in the story. So it doesn't feel cohesive in the story.
Right.
So
yikes.
Yeah, this was a tough watch, especially at the end when it's so utterly disgusting. The like way that she embeds the speakers into her friend's body, and her body. She's like, she takes her to the beach and she's like walking on the beach and people are just staring at her with like the speakers coming out of her body and like taping her with their phones. It's like, ugh, gross.
Yeah, thankfully there was one person who's like, are you okay? I'm going to call 911. I'm like, thank you. And then the woman with the harp and the tightening of the strings that made her fingers bleed. Oh, that was awful too. Yeah. I mean, and again, I don't have a problem with gore, but it wasn't done in an interesting enough way to be compelling. And it felt like just violence for violence's sake, which is fine, but it wasn't compelling to me at all.
Agreed. So I'm gonna suggest a big old skip on this movie.
It's such a bummer though, but yes.
All right, so then let's move on to talking about Dear Mr. Brody. Mr. Brody. I had never heard of this story before, so I thought this was interesting to learn about. It's a documentary about a man named Michael Brody Jr. He, in 1970, was an heir to this margarine empire.
Good luck,
And
margarine. Yeah.
Yeah. And he supposedly had $25 billion of inheritance that he got married, went on his honeymoon, came back, got off the plane and said, I'm going to give this money to anybody. Like, all you have to do is, write me, call me, come see me, and I will give away all of this money and I will make life great for everybody.
Yep. And that's not what happens.
No, it's not. It's chaotic. You find out in the documentary that he probably had maybe closer to $1 million than $25 million. You see him progressively become unhinged mentally. And it's weird when you find out later in the documentary that this really only took place over the course of like 2 weeks. So it's quite the rise and fall, and it's a fascinating story, mainly because they zone in on the people who reached out to him, but specifically they're able to find thousands of letters that people wrote to him that never got to him. And so they, in the documentary, they open these letters and they like process them, and they go through them, and it just, you find out there's like 30,000 letters that were unopened in various people's like storage units. And I think they said in the film they've gone through 12,000 of them, which is amazing to me. And so, yeah, you hear like reenactments of people reading the letters, like folks who worked on the documentary. And it becomes extremely poignant when they actually circle back around to some of the people who wrote the letters. And they have not seen this letter since 1970. And so seeing them open it up, seeing them read the letter and just kind of take themselves back to that moment, it's incredibly powerful in one scene, because we find out that a woman wrote a letter, and then we find out that her mother also wrote a letter that she didn't know about. And it's like a letter that you hear about earlier in the documentary. You're like, oh, that's such a sad story. And then you find out, no, it's this woman's mother who wrote this. This is her story that she's talking about. So, What do we think?
Well, I think it was uneven.
Yes,
and I think,
agreed.
I think you've kind of got two stories here. You have a story of a man with mental illness, or maybe mental illness. They don't really get into that because I guess they probably don't know, because he died in 1973. But it's never quite clear whether whether it's triggered by his overuse of PCP, or which is they barely touch on, or whether he's the way mental illness manifests itself. Sometimes it just it's there. It's part of you, I guess, is what I would say. So there's that story, and frankly, I didn't find his story all that compelling, because it's really strange to watch other people talk about somebody, his ex-wife, his widow, I should say, and his son who never really knew him, and trying to guess at what he was thinking and what was going on. But then you have these letters that are fascinating, and also you realize that 51 years later, everybody's still poor, still needs help, still can't find a job. And when I say still, I don't mean the same people, I mean people generally.
Yeah. It's the same systemic issues that people are having.
Right. And I think the documentary misses a big swing and a miss on that part of the documentary. It's not like they treat the letters like they're cute, because they don't, but it comes across that way, mostly because they focus on some of the care and detail and thought that people put into not just what they write, but also how they decorate. Like some people, there's one woman who sent a self-portrait, or no, she sent a portrait of Brody's wife that she saw a picture in newspaper. She did a portrait, and it's a great portrait. And it's like, it's cool. And I understand from a filmic point of view why you would put that in there. But at the same time, I just feel like the social aspect is just kind of not glossed over, but there's too much Brody, not enough people suffering, even though he was suffering too in his own way.
Yeah. Yeah, you find out that his mom died early and he had a very lonely childhood where he was raised by, nannies and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Ugh. Yeah, it was somebody, I can't remember who it is, actually describes him as like a poor little rich kid, and but in a not sort of like disparaging way. It's like, no, this is a real thing. This kid like had no decent parental influence because his father was distant and his mother was dead. And, yeah, it's just, the whole story is just so fucking sad. I wish the movie were better. So that's where I come down.
Yeah, I think we're on a similar page. I found it to be uneven as well. I wish there was more focus on the letters, because I think that's its own interesting story unto itself, both the craftsmanship, like you're referring to, the photos. Like there's that guy who wrote that he had like a club that he started for kids in the neighborhood to give them a safe place to hang out. And he's like, here's pictures of the kids. Please send these back. I don't have other copies.
Right. And it's just like, I want to know whether they found that guy. I would think they didn't, since they didn't mention him again, but like...
So there's definitely an interesting element there. And I mean, I love the story of the woman who didn't realize that her mother wrote, and like seeing her realize that and getting a chance to read this letter and touch this, part of her life and memory of her mother. I thought that was just incredible. And I love there's a story of the three women whose mother wrote to ask for money for her typing business. They lived in the Washington projects, and their mother had a typing business, and she wanted to help other women in the area get off welfare and to have a career. And that letter was also just so moving. So I think those aspects of the documentary resonate. Also, this reminded me quite a bit of a documentary I saw a few years ago called Yours in Sisterhood, which is a similar premise. It's all letters to Ms. Magazine that were not published. And so you get a chance to read through letters like this, and you get a chance to visit with the people who wrote them. And that also is similarly powerful. So it was effective in the same way. I just wish it was a little less uneven, like you're saying, Dave.
Yeah. Although I did appreciate when, I don't know any of the filmmakers' names because I've forgotten, but when they interviewed Michael Brody's widow, and how she says at the end of the documentary, when she's done her final interview, she's like, people look back on the past with such like, and I'm paraphrasing, people look back on the past with like such nostalgia and joy, and that, those years were the best years of my life. And she's like, I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way at all. It's just like, oh, you poor woman. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Your husband,
Renee was her name.
Yes. I mean, what happened eventually is Michael Brody took his own life. And she raised their son, I guess he was probably 2 or 3, on her own. And you just, you don't get the sense that she's sad necessarily, but you do get that she is filled with regret, over that part of her life. And it's just like, there's a lot of pain in this documentary that seems insufficiently realized, or it's not treated disrespectfully, but it's not as deep as it could be, which I kind of said before, but I said more coherently now. Thank you very much.
What about you, Megan? What did you think?
So unfortunately, I only saw the first half of the film, so I didn't get to the second half. But from what I saw, I did not find the story about Brody very compelling or interesting. But much like you, Evan, what I found really fascinating were the letters. And that for me is really when the documentary picked up. And because I was, in the beginning, I'm like, where is this going? What's going to happen? And then when they start reading the letters, and the woman who was working with the producer, Edward Pressman, like, talking about how they had been in contact in 1970 and finding all the letters and then reading them, and she's crying as she's reading them and connecting with the people. I found that really fascinating and really compelling. And so, yeah. And also thinking about the letters, as I've shared before, I despise reenactments and documentaries, but it didn't actually bother me so much here. I think because they were like very quick kind of like punctuated with very quick reenactments, so it didn't bother me. And I like that we see the actual letters. And yeah, so that facet of the documentary I enjoyed and found really interesting.
Yeah, I had a feeling that you would. I'm glad that the short reenactments worked for you. I think in this case where you probably couldn't get to all these people, you probably couldn't track them all down. I think that had to kind of stand in for some of the letters.
Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, I think this documentary was okay.
Yeah.
It you know, like we said, it's uneven. I think there's some very strong aspects of it, some aspects that are kind of weak, but overall a really fascinating story, I think, and one I think that people should know about, if for no other reason to reflect on where we are today. And someone does mention the fact that these are not, new issues or resolved issues. It's kind of like a blip, it's like a one line kind of thing that doesn't get the kind of treatment that you would hope for.
That's kind of interesting too, thinking about how it doesn't get more coverage. And I'm solely here taking this on what you guys have said, but it's interesting considering how much archival footage they use. It's very, and you see Peter Jennings and you see, Ed Sullivan, and it's just kind of surprising that, I don't know, I feel like there's a way to, if you're not going to have it from the people currently and their experiences, if that's not hammering home the point that as much as things change, they stay exactly the same, why not have some more, news footage or something that reifies that point? So it's kind of strange.
Yeah.
To leave that out.
It is. I think, the focus on the news footage is mostly on Brody himself, and it feels like kind of like a rehash. They keep playing a lot of the same clips of him saying things that are nonsensical. And later in the doc, they become increasingly nonsensical. Like when he, chartered a helicopter to fly to the White House to supposedly meet with Nixon because he wanted to pay Nixon to end the Vietnam War. I mean, there's just then he starts saying things like, I have $1 billion. I have $100 billion. And he, just like the amount of money just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you're like, okay, this guy is not he's not stable. It's not good.
Yeah. Yep.
So moving on, I would love to talk about Language Lessons, which I just saw.
Yes. Dave and I have already shared that we couldn't wait to talk about this off mic. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to discussing this one. So Language Lessons is directed by Natalie Morales, and this is her directorial debut. She co-wrote this with Mark Duplass, who is also her co-star. And yeah, this is a film where Mark Duplass, his husband, his character's name is Adam. His husband, Will, buys him Spanish lessons with Natalie Morales. Her character's Carino. And they're all remote Spanish lessons. They're over FaceTime. And yeah, they develop a rapport and they become friendly. And then bam, Adam's husband, Will, dies suddenly. And Carino becomes a support system for Adam, and not just a Spanish teacher, someone to talk to. And they very much become entwined in each other's lives and become friends. They just develop unexpected relationship, and it just goes to some deep places. So
yes,
what do we think?
Loved it.
Same.
Loved every minute of it.
Love.
It's from the opening scene too.
Yes.
And it completely subverted my expectations. Like when on the second day, it turns out that the husband is dead. At first, they're talking about how they talk pretty extensively right at the top, how they play practical jokes on each other and try to scare the shit out of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is like a practical joke and he's pulling her in on it. And by the way, I'm not glad that his husband died because that's horrible, but I'm glad that it wasn't a joke because God, what kind of a fucking person would do that?
Oh my God, that would have been terrible.
Yeah. So just the humanity of these. I like really small movies. I like long movies where nothing happens, and I like small short movies like this one where two or not many people like discover a new avenue of humanity in themselves that they was either dormant or they had and needed someone to give it to, and finally found that right person, and blah 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 blah.
Well said, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I come up with something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I absolutely adored this. I was dying to see this, and then it did not disappoint. It exceeded every expectation I had. The performances by Natalie Morales and Mark Duplass are so wonderful. They have such great chemistry, such a lovely rapport with each other. I truly believed their deep bond and friendship. I think this is incredibly well written. It's funny, it's sweet, it's emotional. It vacillates between light and deep exceptionally well. I mean, they're dealing with such heavy issues about grief and death, and yet it's also like, I laughed out loud, and I don't always do that in comedies, which is so lovely. And I also love the issues it's raising about death and grief and how you handle them and who you lean on in those tough moments. And that it also raises issues regarding social media and online connection. And are those really legitimate relationships? I would absolutely say they are. But that comes up when, when Mark says he's like, I love you. If you're in trouble, I want to help you, because Carino shows up one time accidentally with bruises on her face and very cagey about what happened. So he doesn't know what's going on, but he thinks it could be a domestic violence situation. And then she's like, you love me? You don't even know me. I got into a fight at a bar with another girl. But he's 100% right when he says, I know what you're doing. You're pushing me away, and I'm not going to let you do it. And it's so true. And it's so true that just because you have a distant connection with someone, like over, FaceTime or Zoom or over social media, doesn't mean that's not a valid connection. And I love that the film gets into that. And I just wanted to keep hanging out with the two of them. After the movie ended, I was sad. I was like, I want to know what they're doing. I want to hang out with them.
Same. Yeah.
For sure.
And that ending, oh my God, I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. Perfect opening, perfect ending. I think this is really the perfect movie for like right now. Like, getting kind of the tail end of the, as more people are getting vaccinated, like this movie is like the perfect pandemic movie, like about two people exclusively until the very end interacting with each other via FaceTime through screens, both real-time interactions, and they play phone tag quite a bit in this, where they leave each other like FaceTime messages. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful story about friendship and platonic love, and like, finding friendship and love when you're not expecting it and through tough times. So I feel like this is a story we've been needing during the pandemic. I'm a little sad it's coming in now, but I'm glad that it's coming out, because it's really well done. I mean, the opening scene is hilarious because, she's FaceTimed in and she's hearing whispering from someone that she can't see. And we find out that like the computer or the phone or whatever is set up. And Adam's husband, Will, is whispering to her like, oh, this is a surprise. And like, Adam doesn't know this is coming. And like, so then, he walks in with his robe open and is like, he sees this person on FaceTime, and then he like covers up. And then it's like this whole really sweet, funny scene where they're, yelling and chasing each other and knocking each other over. And then his husband's like, have fun. Bye.
Yeah. And then their first lesson, he's taking his morning swim while they're having their first lesson, which
I love that.
Was a hoot, man.
Yeah. I love that she's like, because he's like, I have this really, strict routine. And she's like, well, let me be part of your routine. And I adored that. I thought that was lovely.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he is someone who newly came into money, and that he grew up poor and he felt so guilty about having money. I thought that was a really interesting angle to look at. And it's one I feel not often is explored. Like, people are rich and that's it. And films don't question that, or they're poor and that's it. And they don't question that. And so I thought that was an interesting complexity. And I also have to say, I love that there is a gay character, especially considering that Natalie Morales is queer. I love that. So yay.
Yeah. I got to watch more Mark Duplass movies because I just was thinking about how Paddleton was one of my favorite movies of, I think it was 2019, which has similar themes, kind of like platonic friendship, platonic love. It's these two men, one finds out he's dying, and they have basically like left everybody behind in their lives except each other. And they've invented this game, Paddleton, and that's what they spend their day doing. They make pizza and they play Paddleton.
Yeah. They watch the same movie over and over again too, I think.
They watch the same over and over again. They talk to each other through the vent in there because one lives above the other in the apartment building, and they find it's got like really thin walls, so they talk to each other through the vents. And so anyway, it's just another kind of a Mark Duplass special. I feel like this is the kind of thing that he really shines in, and he co-wrote that too. Co-wrote Paddleton, so
he also champions women filmmakers too, which is really great to see and really nice.
Yeah. It is. And this is a great directorial debut. It's like such an emotional film, and like the performances, Megan, you were saying before, that they're so great. They're so heartfelt, and they feel so genuine. Like they feel like you're watching two people like forming these bonds and connections and reacting as they would act as real people in these moments. I thought that aspect of the film was just so well done. And I love their banter, like the whole thing about how she tells in the beginning, I've had worse students than you. And so they have this back and forth about how, like you gotta tell me the story. And she's like, no. And he's like, well, I'm going to make this ugly face until you tell me. And then they're both making ugly faces at each other. And then like, there's like a potato that she's drawn a face on because she's doing what she calls potato face. And I loved that aspect of the film. And the end, Megan, you said before, it is just
it's perfect.
It's perfect. It brought me to tears. He's, they've kind of like, they've had a talk, and it's, he's kind of been like, all right, I'm going to send one last message, kind of put my heart on my sleeve. And then he's like, well, I can't leave it at that. Like he sends her like a message where he's like, we find out that she has cancer, and we find out that, it runs in her family. She lost her mother and her grandmother, and she's kind of just like, I'm accepting it and I'm not going to do anything about it. And he is like, look, I want to help you. I'm not doing it out of like any type of like whatever. Like, I want to help you, and I'd love for you to come here. And if you want to do, something to work on your health, great. If you don't, great. Like, I just want to see you and I want to hang out with you. And so he records that message, sends it, and then he starts recording another one. Like, well, I know I said that last one was the last message, but this is like really the last one. And like,
and then she's behind him.
Yeah. She shows up while he's on camera,
good.
and it's so good. It's just like, I got so choked up seeing that happen. I was just like so excited for them to finally see each other and to be together.
I was a sobbing mess, absolute sobbing mess watching it.
And I just want to say that Mark Duplass does not get the credit I think he deserves as an actor. I mean,
I agree.
He is always quite fine in whatever he does. And when I say quite fine, I mean in the actual meaning of fine. Like, it's fine, like a fine, not like a fine wine, because that's fucking stupid. But he's just such a gifted performer,
Yep.
And, all anybody can talk about is like, oh, he made all those mumblecore movies. Don't forget, he was What's-Her-Face's Megyn Kelly's husband in Bombshell, so he does the big budge stuff too. So anyway, and Natalie Morales, I don't want to give her short shrift. I mean, just a fucking towering performance and just solid direction. So just this movie is just a fucking winner all over.
It is. I'm so glad that you mentioned the acting, because that's actually what I wanted to talk about briefly. But Natalie Morales, I've always enjoyed her, always seen her, in comedy series, either in guest performances or in that show where she turns her backyard into a bar. And she's always great, but I've never felt like the roles have really been right. Like for her, like it has never quite felt like it's really captured her full abilities. Like you can see her abilities, but you're not really like, I'm always craving more. And I finally found like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. Finally found like, I feel like I saw a performance that was worthy of her abilities, which is so fantastic to see.
The one thing about it that's kind of a bummer is she had to write it herself. It's just like she couldn't didn't just come to her. She's like, I have no idea what she was thinking, and I'm projecting just like the characters do in the movie. But she's like, fuck it, I don't get the shit that I want to play. I'm gonna fucking write my own movie. So anyway.
I think she did have input on that TV series I was talking about. But yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, which TV series? Because she's been in
I can't think
several.
of the name of it. Like I said, it's one where she turns her backyard into a bar. I can't think of the name of it. Well, it's like Abby's Place or Abby's Bar or something like that.
I think it's just called Abby's.
Okay, it might be that. But yeah, but anyway, she's the protagonist, and I know she had input on it because the character is bi and she is a queer woman. So I shouldn't say no, but I'm pretty sure she had some input. But maybe they just happened to write it as a bi character. Who knows? So maybe I should not be saying I know that she had input, but I'd like to think she did. Anyway, but you're right. It is kind of unfortunate that she had to write like the perfect character for herself. But yeah, good God, what a role she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I love the conversations that they have in Spanish. Like they have very funny conversations and poignant ones too. But one of the things that I really enjoy that the movie does when Mark Duplass, his character, is speaking Spanish, but he's not speaking the correct Spanish. Like he's not grammatically saying the right thing. I love that they put the subtitle parts in quotes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that like what he's saying is clearly not grammatically correct. And that's like a point of contention in the movie, is that like when things start to get too personal for Karina, she is like, oh, well, we need to work on your grammar. We need to not just be like talking about our personal lives. That's unprofessional. And so he's kind of like, he bristles at that because he just enjoys the conversations. And like,
yeah,
I just found that subtle aspect of the movie quite funny, where you can see that he's totally just like winging it and like not speaking grammatically correct, but still getting his point across.
Yeah, but I was going to say, for someone who's winging it, he is speaking exceptionally well, which she says right in the beginning of the film. She's like, I'm not sure why you need lessons. You speak and your comprehension is so incredible. So, yeah.
And I want to add in real quick that, not real quick. Who am I kidding? This is one of those rare movies, and maybe it's just because it's a 2-person, drama / comedy. It's like they actually feel like people you could know, like real, full, rounded, complicated human beings. And I also like the way that it, grief is so different for so many people. It's different for everybody. And the way his grief at his husband's death is portrayed, I found completely believable and, I don't know, kind of touching in a strange way. I don't know, just like I said before, fucking solid all the way around, winner, blah blah.
But the way Carino experiences grief is also very, very different and really, really touching and sad in a way too, because she clearly puts up walls and clearly doesn't want to get too personal because of her grief for her mother and grandmother. But it's great that we're seeing two completely different depictions of grief, and it works so well. So you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dave,
you're welcome.
You're calling attention to one of another scene in the film that I thought was incredible, when he is talking to her right after Will has died and he's sharing the news. And then you see him go through these like series of realizations that kind of like snowball and cause him to kind of like spiral into like panic mode, where he's like, oh my God, I have to tell people. I need to email people. Do I email from my account, from Will's account? Oh my God, there's this like big stuffed animal supposed to send him his nephew. I don't know where his nephew is. I don't know where he lives. And like seeing him go through all of the like, oh my God, he's got a company. He's got to pay people. What do I do? And
when he got to the payroll, that for some reason that struck me like, the payroll. God, how do you fucking deal with that?
Good point.
Yeah. And the way that she's like, hey, just focus on me. We're going to do our normal lesson. Like, I'm going to show you some like a babbling brook, basically. And you need to just rest. And like, let's do that. And that I thought was just a really effective scene.
That was so sweet and so touching because, like, what can you do for someone who is spiraling and who is going through such tremendous grief? And you can stay with them and sit with them and maybe help them, take some deep breaths and whatnot. And I thought that was such a great idea, and I just loved that. And then he's falling asleep, and yeah, it is a beautiful scene. I also love the scene where he's showing pictures of Will, and love that, and talking about their time together. Oh, it was so lovely.
Yeah. I also like that he mentions, though, some of Will's shittier qualities, too.
Yes.
Like he was mean to customer service reps on the phone, which is just such a specific thing. But man, you know that there are people like that. And I have been one of them occasionally. So, I definitely...
I also love that you're right. And he also said something about him being an art snob and that he once dumped a guy because the guy said that Andrew Lloyd Webber was the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. Yeah. But that you're right. That level of specificity, that in part, along with the incredible performances, really lends authenticity to the characters and is partly why they feel so real.
Yeah.
God, I love this movie. I want to watch it again.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching it again.
Mm-hmm. And I can't wait for this to get like a wide release somewhere so that we can we can encourage more people to see it. And I'm psyched that I got a chance to see it as part of South by Southwest coverage.
Yeah.
Me too.
I feel like we could gush about this forever, but do we have anything else that we want to really get in there? We want to make sure that we cover.
No, I think I've said everything I need to say. I mean, it's just like, I also feel like this is one of those movies where we've talked it up so much, but even when you watch it, it will be as good as we say it is. It's not gonna bum you out. They're like, oh man, that was only 60% of what they said. Fuck those guys.
Agreed. Yeah, I just love this film so much, and I'm so excited to have seen it. And I can't wait to talk about it more. I can't wait to watch it more. And you're right, Dave. I don't think anything would diminish the luster of this incredible film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only thing that'd be better is if, like you said, Megan, we could still hang out with the characters.
Yes. Oh, one other thing I did want to point out about the humor in this film, which I think, again, is so good. Speaking about the story that Carino finally does tell him about her student, and saying about how asking for a role, and how when you're taught Spanish, Spanish from Spain, it means one thing, but for Cubans, it means a role means something very different.
Yeah.
I love that because I love that language is so fluid. Language is so different. It varies from region to region, country to country. And I just, one touch that I just loved and was really funny.
Yeah. And it was a great callback to earlier in the movie. She gets to make a joke about how he kept saying he was embarazado, which meant that he was pregnant and not that he was embarrassed.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that is something that my Spanish teacher, actually all my Spanish teachers have harped on that. Don't say that unless you really are pregnant.
Yeah. So the movie's funny in English and in Spanish. And I love the title cards that have, both English and Spanish on them.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
Yep.
Such a great film.
All right. So let's do a recap here. Sounds like Megan and I would say don't see Sound of Violence.
Yeah, I'm going to say skip it.
Yeah.
But do listen to The Sound of Silence.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with that film, but yes, listen to it.
The Sound of Silence. I feel like it's been a while since we've done some singing on the show. Got to bring that background occasionally.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So don't see Sound of Violence. I feel kind of middle of the road about Mr. Brody. How do you guys feel? How do you both feel?
Well, it's watchable despite not being all that it could be. So I'll leave it like that.
Yeah, I would say watch it. It's okay.
Yeah, I think if I think about it, it's definitely come down on the side of C, because I think the letters and that aspect of the story is really touching and really fascinating and worth watching, even if the documentary is uneven. So I would say C, Dear Mr. Brody. And I think it's pretty clear where we fall on language lessons.
Oh my God, yes. See it as soon as you possibly can when it's available.
Yes. So definitely seek that out when it's available. And I'm sure once we find out where it's available, we'll be shouting from the rooftops. So keep an eye on our social media feed. Awesome. That brings us to the end of another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. I wanted to start out by saying a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you for making us sound great week after week. You're the best.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find the show anywhere you get podcasts, but you can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. We are all over social media. We are Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We are at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok. Connect with us in one or all of those places. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts if you've had a chance to check out any of these movies, or maybe at some point in the future, if you do get a chance to check them out, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So you can also email us. We're spoilerpiece@gmail.com. Tell us we're right, we're wrong. Just say hi. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PIECE.
Yeah, the Spoiler Piece hotline. Leave us a message. And if you like the show, please rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, and rating the show really helps other people find it and new people discover. So we very much appreciate it. And if you really like the show, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/spoilerpiece. If you toss us a couple bucks, you can get exclusive audio. This week, we talked about our thoughts on Oscar nominations for this year and some of the major categories. We often review old films in there. We have polls that you can vote in. We'll have one up soon. And then there's a tier where you can tell us what to watch. And so there's lots of goodies over there. We also want to say a huge thank you to our patrons.
Yes, we want to thank Bill Scahan, Bob Chipman, Charles Nash, Chris Wilkinson, Davida Margolin, Deirdre Crimmins, Christopher Jensen, Max Coville, Mike, Lord of the Sith, Rory Glynn, Sean Pensionar, Shauna Harris, Shelley M. McCaskill, Shona Glasgow, and Zach Pigeon. Thank you so much, patrons. We love you.
Thank you.
Thank you, patrons, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in this week. We hope you enjoyed our coverage of South by Southwest movies, and we will see you next week. But first, my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network. I, too, am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinionS.
And my name is Dave Riedel. I write for some places, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. And you can follow me on the social medias as Dave Sees Movies at Letterboxd, Twitter, and Instagram.
See you next week, folks.
Bye.
Bye.